4 weeks into this war, with our missiles running out, Iran just did something that should terrify every military planner in the Pentagon. They didn't just hit an American base, they destroyed a $1 billion E-3 Sentry AWACS aircraft, the flying command center that gives us air superiority. They took out multiple KC-135 tanker aircraft. They wounded 29 American service members, 5 critically. And here's what nobody's talking about. The precision of this strike proves Iran has human intelligence assets inside Saudi Arabia telling them exactly where our aircraft are parked, exactly when they're vulnerable. This wasn't a lucky shot. This was a surgical strike enabled by espionage, and it changes everything about how we understand this war. Let me walk you through what happened on the night of March 28th into March 29th at Prince Sultan Air Base, about 60 miles southeast of Riyadh. This base has been a cornerstone of American military operations in the region for decades. It's where we station aircraft that conduct operations across the Middle East. It's home to command and control assets. It's a logistics hub, and the Saudis have allowed us to operate there because they need American military protection. Iran launched a complex attack using both ballistic missiles and drones. My sources tell me they fired at least 15 missiles and deployed more than 24 drones specifically targeting this base. The Saudi and American air defense systems intercepted most of them, but several got through, and the ones that got through hit with devastating accuracy. The E-3 Sentry AWACS airborne warning and control system is not just another aircraft. It's a flying radar station and command center, the distinctive rotating radar dome on top of a Boeing 707 airframe. These planes cost over $600 million each when you factor in all the systems and modifications. We only have a limited number of them. They're irreplaceable in the short term because they take years to build and the production line isn't even active anymore. What does an AWACS do? It provides battlefield awareness. It can track hundreds of aircraft simultaneously over hundreds of miles. It coordinates air operations. It detects incoming threats. It's the platform that allows American and allied fighters to operate with complete situational awareness. Without AWACS coverage, our pilots are flying partially blind. They lose the God's eye view of the battlefield that American air power has relied on for decades. Iran destroyed one of these aircraft on the ground. Not in the air where it might have been able to detect the incoming threat and take evasive action. On the ground at night, when it was parked and vulnerable. That tells you everything you need to know about the quality of intelligence Iran had. They also destroyed multiple KC-135 Stratotanker aircraft. These are the aerial refueling planes that extend the range of American fighters and bombers. Without tankers, our aircraft can't stay airborne as long. They can't strike targets as far from their bases. The operational radius of American air power shrinks dramatically. Every KC-135 we lose degrades our ability to project power across the region. 29 American service members were wounded in the attack. 5 are in critical condition. My sources tell me some of these personnel were maintenance crews working on aircraft. Others were security forces trying to respond to the attack. The fact that Iran was able to time the strike to hit when American personnel were on the flight line suggests they knew not just where the aircraft were, but when they would be most vulnerable and when the maximum number of people would be nearby. Now, here's the question that should be keeping everyone at the Pentagon awake at night. How did Iran know exactly where to strike? Prince Sultan Air Base is a large facility. Aircraft can be parked in multiple locations. Hangars, revetments, dispersed positions designed to protect against exactly this kind of attack. Yet Iranian missiles hit the specific locations where high-value American aircraft were positioned. There are only a few possible explanations. One is that Iran has overhead imagery, satellite reconnaissance, that allowed them to identify the aircraft. That's certainly part of it. But satellite imagery alone doesn't tell you when aircraft will be there, when they'll be vulnerable, when maintenance crews will be present. That requires human intelligence, eyes on the ground, someone with access to the base or to people who work on the base. My sources tell me that American counterintelligence officials are now conducting an intensive investigation into how Iran obtained the targeting information for this strike. They're reviewing security protocols. They're investigating personnel with access to the base. They're looking at Saudi military and civilian contractors who work at the facility. Because the level of precision in this attack is consistent with someone providing real-time or near real-time intelligence to Iranian targeting officers. Think about what that means. Iran has successfully penetrated the security of an American military installation on Saudi soil. They have human sources, either witting or unwitting, who can provide actionable intelligence about where our most valuable assets are located and when they're vulnerable to attack. This isn't theoretical. This just happened. We just lost $1 billion aircraft and multiple tankers because Iran's intelligence network was able to target them precisely. And here's what makes this even more concerning. If Iran can do this at Prince Sultan Air Base, where else have they penetrated? What other American facilities in the region are compromised? What other intelligence networks are operating that we haven't detected? Every base, every forward operating location, every facility where American forces are stationed now has to be considered potentially vulnerable to this kind of precision strike enabled by espionage. The Saudis are deeply embarrassed by this. It happened on their territory. It was their responsibility to provide security. The fact that Iran was able to strike this precisely suggests either Saudi security was compromised or Iranian intelligence is so sophisticated that even Saudi counterintelligence couldn't detect it. Either explanation is bad for Riyadh. Either explanation raises questions about whether American forces can safely operate from Saudi bases if Iran has this level of intelligence capability. My sources tell me there have been heated discussions between American and Saudi military officials since the attack. The Americans want answers about how security was breached. The Saudis are defensive, arguing they intercepted most of the incoming missiles and drones, but the ones that got through hit exactly the right targets. That's not luck, that's intelligence. And this brings us back to a strategic problem I've been warning about. We're fighting a war against an adversary who has spent decades preparing for asymmetric operations. Iran knows they can't match American military power conventionally, so they've invested in other capabilities, ballistic missiles, drones, and crucially, intelligence networks that can identify vulnerabilities and enable precision strikes against high-value targets. The loss of the E-3 Sentry is a capability gap we can't easily fill. We don't have spare AWACS aircraft sitting around. The ones we have are constantly deployed, constantly needed. Losing one means we have to either accept reduced coverage in some theater or we have to pull an aircraft from another region, which means weakening our posture somewhere else. This is the same magazine depth problem we're facing with missiles, just applied to aircraft. The same goes for the KC-135 tankers. We have a finite number of them. They're old aircraft, many of them built in the 1950s and 1960s. We're trying to replace them with the KC-46 Pegasus, but that program has been troubled and delayed. Every tanker we lose today is one we can't afford to lose given our global commitments. And here's the broader strategic implication. Iran just demonstrated that American air bases in the region are vulnerable, not theoretically vulnerable, actually vulnerable. They proved they can strike with precision. They proved they have the intelligence capability to identify and target our most valuable assets. That changes the calculus for every aspect of this war. American commanders now have to assume that Iran knows where our aircraft are. They have to assume that any base within range of Iranian missiles and drones is potentially targetable with precision. That means dispersing forces more. It means more frequent relocations. It means more resources devoted to security and counterintelligence. It means accepting that the sanctuary we thought we had at bases like Prince Sultan is not actually a sanctuary. This is asymmetric warfare at its most effective. Iran can't defeat American air power in traditional air-to-air combat, but they don't need to. If they can destroy our aircraft on the ground using missiles and drones guided by intelligence networks, they achieve the same strategic effect. They degrade American air capabilities without ever having to engage in the kind of air combat where we have overwhelming advantage. My sources tell me that since the attack on Prince Sultan, American forces at bases throughout the region have gone to heightened alert. Aircraft are being moved more frequently. Security has been increased. Counterintelligence efforts have been intensified. But all of that is reactive. All of that is trying to close the barn door after the horse has already escaped. The damage is done. The aircraft are destroyed. And Iran now knows that this approach works. You can bet they're planning additional strikes. They're identifying other high-value targets at other bases. They're leveraging whatever intelligence networks they have to pinpoint vulnerabilities. And American forces are now in the uncomfortable position of having to defend against an adversary who has proven they can strike precisely against our most critical assets. This also has implications for how other adversaries view American military vulnerabilities. China is watching this very carefully. They're taking notes on how Iran is using intelligence networks combined with precision strike capabilities to target American air power. They're thinking about how they might apply similar approaches in a Taiwan scenario. If Iran can successfully target American aircraft in the Middle East, why couldn't China target American aircraft in the Western Pacific? Russia's watching too. They're observing that despite all our technology, despite all our air defense systems, despite all our security measures, Iran was able to get through and hit exactly what they wanted to hit. That's valuable intelligence about American vulnerabilities that our adversaries are absolutely analyzing and incorporating into their own operational planning. The attack on Prince Sultan Air Base is not just a tactical setback, it's a strategic indicator that American military power is more vulnerable than we've assumed. We've built a force that assumes we can operate from secure bases with impunity. We've assumed that our air power gives us automatic superiority. We've assumed that our technology and capabilities mean the enemy can't touch our most critical assets. Iran just proved all of those assumptions wrong. They can touch our critical assets. They can strike with precision. They have the intelligence capability to identify and target vulnerabilities, and they're willing to take risks to do it. The question now is, how do we respond? Do we accept that bases in the region are vulnerable and operate accordingly? Do we pull back to more secure locations further from Iranian missiles, which reduces our ability to strike Iranian targets? Do we escalate and try to destroy Iran's intelligence networks and strike capabilities, which risks widening the war? There are no good options. Every choice involves accepting risk or accepting limitations on what we can do. My sources tell me there's intense debate within the Pentagon about how to proceed. Some argue we need to strike back hard against Iranian intelligence facilities and Revolutionary Guard bases. Others argue that we need to fundamentally rethink our basing and operational approach in the region. Others argue that we need to accept that this war is more costly and more difficult than anticipated and consider whether continuing it makes strategic sense. What's clear is that Iran is not behaving like a defeated enemy, despite losing much of their military infrastructure, despite having their leadership decapitated, despite being under sustained assault from American and Israeli forces. They are still conducting sophisticated military operations. They're still striking back. They're still demonstrating capability and will. The destruction of the E-3 Sentry and the KC-135 tankers is a message. It's Iran telling us that they can hurt us, that they have capabilities we maybe didn't fully appreciate, that this war is not going the way American planners assumed it would. And that message is being heard not just in Washington, but in Beijing and Moscow and Pyongyang and every capital where leaders are watching and learning and thinking about how to challenge American military power. This is what happens when you fight an adversary who refuses to play by the rules you expected. Iran isn't trying to match us conventionally. They're fighting asymmetrically using intelligence and precision strikes to target our vulnerabilities. And right now, that approach is working. The E-3 Sentry is gone. The tankers are gone. American service members are wounded, and Iran has proven they have the intelligence capability and strike capability to do it again. That should concern everyone who understands what American air power depends on and how fragile it actually is when the enemy knows where to hit. Let me break down exactly what losing an E-3 Sentry means operationally, because this isn't just about losing one aircraft. The AWACS fleet is the nervous system of American air operations. These planes provide the command and control that makes everything else work. When you lose one, you don't just lose the aircraft, you lose capability across an entire theater. A typical E-3 carries a crew of between 13 and 19 specialists, air surveillance officers, weapons controllers, communications technicians, radar operators. These aren't just pilots. These are highly trained specialists who take years to fully train. Some of the crew from the destroyed aircraft may have been on board when it was hit. Others may have been in nearby facilities. The loss of experienced AWACS crew members is as significant as the loss of the aircraft itself. The E-3 Sentry can track more than 200 targets simultaneously at ranges exceeding 250 miles. It can direct fighters to intercept threats. It can coordinate complex air operations involving dozens of aircraft. It provides early warning of incoming missiles and enemy aircraft. It's the platform that allows American fighters to operate with what we call network warfare, where every aircraft knows where every other friendly and enemy aircraft is at all times. Without that capability, our fighters revert to a much more primitive mode of operation. They rely on their onboard radars, which have much shorter range and can't see the full picture. They lose the ability to coordinate effectively with other aircraft. They become more vulnerable to ambush. The entire efficiency and lethality of American air power decreases significantly when you take away the AWACS picture And here's what makes the Prince Sultan strike even more significant. Iran didn't just destroy one AWACS. They demonstrated that they can target and destroy AWACS aircraft when they want to. That means every other E-3 Sentry in the region is now a marked target. Iran knows these aircraft are critical to American operations. They know where they're based, and they've proven they can strike those bases with precision. So what do American commanders do now? Do they keep operating E-3 aircraft from Prince Sultan Air Base, knowing Iran can target them? Do they move them to other bases, which means Iran will just target those bases instead? Do they keep the AWACS airborne more often to reduce their ground vulnerability, which burns through flight hours and maintenance cycles faster? Every option has costs. Every option involves accepting risk or accepting reduced capability. The same calculation applies to the KC-135 tankers. These aircraft are the lifeblood of American air operations over long distances. Without aerial refueling, fighters and bombers based in the Gulf can't reach targets deep inside Iran. They can't loiter over combat areas for extended periods. They can't respond to emerging threats that require rapid deployment of air power to distant locations. Iran destroyed multiple KC-135s in the Prince Sultan strike. My sources won't say exactly how many, but the plural is significant. Every tanker lost is one less aircraft available to support operations across the entire region. And remember, these planes are old. The average KC-135 is over 60 years old. We're not building new ones. The replacement program is behind schedule. Every aircraft we lose is essentially irreplaceable in the near term. Now let's talk about the intelligence aspect, because this is where the story gets really concerning. How did Iran know exactly where to hit? Prince Sultan Air Base is not a small facility. It covers a large area. Aircraft can be positioned in multiple locations. There are hardened shelters, dispersal areas, maintenance facilities. Iranian missiles hitting the exact spots where American AWACS and tankers were parked suggests very specific targeting information. Satellite imagery can tell you generally where aircraft are located, but it doesn't tell you which specific parking spots will be occupied on which specific night. It doesn't tell you when aircraft will be in maintenance status and unable to move. It doesn't tell you when crews will be present. That level of detail requires human intelligence. It requires someone with access to operational information, providing it to Iranian intelligence services. My sources tell me American counterintelligence is now looking at several possibilities. One is that Iran has recruited sources among the Saudi military or civilian contractors who work at the base. Another is that Iran has technical surveillance cameras, signals intelligence that provides real-time or near real-time information about base operations. A third possibility is that Iran has penetrated American communications or information systems and is able to extract operational data that way. All three possibilities are deeply troubling. If Iran has human sources at Prince Sultan, that means they've successfully recruited or coerced individuals with access to sensitive information. That's not easy to do. It requires sophisticated intelligence tradecraft. It requires patience and operational security. The fact that such a network could exist without being detected suggests Iranian intelligence is much more capable than many people assumed. If Iran has technical surveillance capabilities that we haven't detected, that's also concerning. It means our counterintelligence and security measures aren't adequate to detect and defeat Iranian collection efforts. It means they're watching us and we don't know how or from where. That's a fundamental security failure. And if Iran has penetrated our information systems, that's potentially catastrophic. It would mean they have access to operational plans, force dispositions, movement schedules, all the information they need to conduct precision strikes, not just at Prince Sultan, but at any American facility in the region. The reality is probably some combination of all three. Iran likely uses satellite imagery to identify American bases and assets. They probably have human sources providing specific information about when and where valuable targets will be located. They may have technical collection capabilities filling gaps in their coverage. It's a layered intelligence approach that's proven effective. And here's what's particularly sophisticated about how Iran is using this intelligence. They're not just collecting it. They're integrating it into their targeting process quickly enough to act on time-sensitive information. The missiles and drones that hit Prince Sultan were launched with specific aim points. Someone in Iran's targeting cell had current information about where American aircraft were positioned. They processed processed that information, generated targeting coordinates, programmed missiles and drones, and launched them while the information was still valid. That's not trivial. That requires an intelligence-to-strike chain that functions smoothly and quickly. Many countries have intelligence services that can collect information. Fewer have the ability to turn that intelligence into actionable targeting data quickly enough to hit moving or time-sensitive targets. Iran is demonstrating that capability. This is fundamentally different from how wars used to work. In traditional conflicts, you might have spies reporting on enemy dispositions, but that information took time to transmit and process. By the time it resulted in action, the situation might have changed. Modern warfare with real-time or near real-time intelligence combined with precision strike weapons allows you to observe something and hit it within hours or even minutes. Iran has figured out how to do this despite being under sustained attack, despite having their command and control infrastructure damaged, despite operating in a heavily contested information environment. That's impressive. It's concerning, and it's changing how we have to think about force protection and operational security. My sources tell me that since the Prince Sultan strike, American forces throughout the region have implemented enhanced security measures. Aircraft are being moved more frequently between parking locations. Deception measures are being employed using decoys, false information, changing patterns. Electronic countermeasures are being enhanced to disrupt Iranian reconnaissance. Human security is being tightened with more thorough background checks and compartmentalization of operational information. But all of these measures come with costs. Moving aircraft frequently burns maintenance hours and reduces readiness. Deception operations require resources and personnel. Enhanced security measures slow down operations and reduce efficiency. You can't run an air war at full tempo when you're constantly worried about intelligence compromise and precision strikes on your bases. This is asymmetric warfare at the strategic level. Iran can't match American air power aircraft for aircraft, but they can force us to expend resources on security and force protection. They can make us less efficient. They can introduce friction into our operations. They can tie down combat power in defensive postures that can't be used offensively. And occasionally they can strike through our defenses and destroy high-value assets. The cumulative effect is to make the war more costly, more difficult, and less decisive than American planners anticipated. We're not losing in any conventional sense, but we're also not winning quickly or cleanly. And every week the war continues without decisive results is a week where Iran demonstrates they can survive and strike back. China and Russia are absolutely studying this. They're learning what works. They're noting that intelligence-enabled precision strikes on air bases can degrade American air power even when American forces have local air superiority. They're observing that despite all our technology and capabilities, we're vulnerable to adversaries who invest in intelligence and asymmetric strike capabilities. They're incorporating these lessons into their own planning for potential future conflicts. The E-3 Sentry destruction is a data point in a larger pattern. American military power is incredibly capable when everything works as planned, but when adversaries find ways to disrupt our operations, when they identify and exploit vulnerabilities, when they force us to fight differently than we planned, the advantages we count on start to erode. This is what concerns me most about this war. We're discovering in real time that many of our assumptions about American military superiority were based on facing adversaries who didn't have sophisticated intelligence networks and precision strike capabilities. Iran has both, and they're using them effectively. That's changing the strategic calculus, not just for this war, but for how we think about American military power in general. The AWACS destruction is a symptom of a bigger problem. We're fighting an enemy who won't fight the way we expected them to fight, and they're proving that asymmetric approaches can be devastatingly effective against even the world's most powerful military. Let me give you final context. The E-3 Sentry Iran destroyed represented decades of American technological investment. These aircraft embody everything making American air power dominant: advanced radar, sophisticated communications, networked warfare capability. Losing one isn't just financial loss, it's capability loss that can't be quickly recovered. Iran planned this strike knowing exactly what it would accomplish. They identified a target that would hurt operationally and psychologically. They developed intelligence enabling precision targeting. They executed despite our air defenses. They destroyed assets we can't easily replace. That's sophisticated military planning backed by effective intelligence operations. The 29 wounded American service members are receiving care. Some will recover fully. Others face long-term injuries. Their sacrifice is real. Iran hitting them while performing duties at what should have been secure base raises serious questions about protecting our people in this theater. Destroyed aircraft are gone. Intelligence compromise is real. Base vulnerability is proven. Iran knows this approach works. They'll do it again. They'll refine techniques. They'll exploit whatever intelligence channels they have. We'll be forced to adapt and defend, burning resources on security that could otherwise be used offensively. This is the war we're actually fighting. Not clean, decisive victory anticipated, but grinding, costly, attritional conflict where enemy keeps hitting back and finding ways to hurt us. E-3 Sentry destruction is just one chapter, but it's a chapter revealing how vulnerable American military power can be when facing determined adversary who fights smart rather than fights fair. And that's a lesson adversaries worldwide are learning very carefully.